warm welcome to State of Business on Art Television. I'm Heshain Ali and let's have a look at the headlines first. Draft Bill of 20th Amendment to the Constitution tabled in Parliament. Professor Charita Herath appointed as COPE Chairman. News in detail. The proposed 20th Amendment to the Constitution was tabled in Parliament today morning for the first reading by the Justice Minister President's Counsel Ali Sabri amidst wider protests from the main opposition Samagi Jana Balawegaya. The draft bill of the 20th Amendment to the Constitution was tabled in Parliament today morning. Thereby, the main opposition party Samagi Jana Balawegaya protested against the 20th Amendment, carrying placards against it. They also wore stickers on their tops and wore black stripes of clothes as a token of protest. In the meantime, opposition leader Sajid Premadasa raised his stance on the proposed 20th Amendment to the Constitution.
මේ 20වෙනි සංශෝධනය හරහා විගණකාධිපතිවරයාත් විගණකාධිපති දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවත් ඒ විගණකාධිපති ක්‍රමවේදයක් සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම විනාශ කරලා තිබෙන මේ 20වෙනි සංශෝධනය තුළ. එතකොට විගණකාධිපතිවරයාට ඒ දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවට ජනාධිපති ලේකම් කාර්යාලය අග්‍රාමාත්‍ය ලේකම් කාර්යාලය රජයේ වැඩි කොටස් තිබෙන සමාගම් විගණනය කරන්නට බෑ. මේ ඒකට විරුද්ධවයි අපි ජනතාව වෙනුවෙන් හඬක් නගන්නේ.
Moreover, Vijda Herath, representing the National People's Power Party, added that the committee appointed to look into the 20th Amendment to the Constitution by the Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa is not substantial and accountable since it includes cabinet ministers and especially the Justice Minister President's Counsel Ali Sabri. Nevertheless, parliamentarians representing the government claimed that the positive features of the 19th Amendment were not brought forward in the good governance regime, especially by the rift between then Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe and President Maithripala Sirisena. Thereby, citizens of the country can now file petitions with the Supreme Court within 7 days challenging the draft bill of the 20th Amendment if they find it contentious. Thus, a petition was filed before the Supreme Court by a lawyer challenging that the 20th Amendment to the Constitution cannot be passed without a referendum. In the meantime, Professor Charita Herath has been appointed as the new chairman of the Committee on Public Enterprises. Professor Charita Herath's name was proposed by Minister Mahindananda Alutgamige and seconded by State Minister Jayantha Samaraweera. Thereby, the other members of the COPE are Mahinda Amaraweera, Mahindananda Alutgamige, Rohitha Begunawardena, Susil Premajayantha, Dilum Amunagama, Indika Anuruddha Herath, Sarath Veerasekara, D.V. Chanaka, Dr. Nalaka Godaheva, Ajit Niwad Cabral, Rauf Hakim, Anuruddha Sanayaka, Patli Champika Ranavaka, Jagat Pushpakumara, Iran Vikramaratna, Ranjan Ramanayaka, Nalin Bandarajayamaha, S.M. Marikar, Premanath C. Dolavatta and Shanikian Rajaputiran Rasmanikam. Moreover, 7 regulations under the Finance Act, 5 regulations under the Foreign Exchange Act and 31 regulations under the Special Commodity Levy Act were taken up for debate today. Commencing the debate, Trade Minister Bandula Gunawardena said that the local farmers have been ensured a safer market under the government of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, and he said that these ordinances protect the local farmer where necessary and the consumer when required. However, he said that while required raw materials would be permitted to be imported, importation of non-essential items has been curtailed in order to protect the local industries. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa calls upon the United Nations to place due emphasis on non-interference in domestic affairs of its states while respecting the territorial integrity of those. Accordingly, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa made these observations in a pre-recorded statement at the high-level meeting held to commemorate the 75th anniversary of the United Nations yesterday. UN member states agreed in June 2019 that the UN will mark its 75th anniversary with a one-day high-level meeting of the UN General Assembly on 21st of September 2020 on the theme, "The Future We Want, the UN We Need," reaffirming our collective commitment to multilateralism. The president of the 75th session of the General Assembly is Volkan Bozkır, and he made the opening statement at the meeting where leaders and delegates of 180 countries made their representations. Thus, addressing the high-level meeting, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa added that the United Nations should place due emphasis on non-interference in domestic affairs of its states.
Sri Lanka has committed to the 2030 agenda of sustainable development. Poverty alleviation through an agri-based production economy is a major goal of my government. The steps that we had initiated earlier this year for enhancing local production, partial restrictions on imports, as well as assisting small and medium-scale entrepreneurs paid their dividends. At a time when the world is facing a common and unrevealed threat, the United Nations we need, I'm certain, will place due emphasis on the sovereign equality of states, respect of territorial integrity, and non-interference in their domestic affairs. I firmly believe that partnerships fostered between member states and the UN continues at their best when no country is held hostage to the interest of a few. Sri Lanka is hopeful that we of the United Nations would rededicate ourselves in efforts to strengthen this great institution to ensure the future we want.
Stay tuned for more news right after this commercial break. Welcome back after the break. The central bank states that the headline inflation as measured by the year-on-year change in the National Consumer Price Index has increased marginally to 6.2% in August this year from 6.1% in July 2020. The marginal increase in the headline inflation was driven by the monthly increases in prices of items in both food and non-food categories. Meanwhile, food inflation increased to 13.2% in August 2020 from 12.9% in July 2020, whereas non-food inflation increased marginally by 1 decimal point to 1.1% in August 2020 from 1% in July 2020. The change in the NCPI measured on an annual average basis increased to 6.1% in August 2020 from 5.9% in July 2020. Monthly change of NCPI recorded at 0.4% in August 2020, mainly due to increases observed in prices of items in both food and non-food categories. Accordingly, within the food category, increases were observed mainly in the prices of vegetables, turmeric powder and coconuts in last month. However, health subcategory recorded a decline during the month, with the reduction observed in payments to medical laboratory tests. Further, co-inflation increased marginally to 4.6% in August 2020 from 4.5% in July 2020, while annual average co-inflation decreased to 4.4% in August 2020 from 4.5% in July 2020. The Board of Investment of Sri Lanka signs an agreement to build a 160-room, 3-star lean luxury hotel in Kandy with an investment of $29.32 million. Accordingly, the Board of Investment of Sri Lanka signed the agreement with Indra Hotels and Resorts Kandy Private Limited, which is a joint venture between John Keells Hotels and Indra Traders. The agreement was signed on behalf of the BOI by its chairman, Susantha Ratnayaka, and chairman of Indra Hotels and Resorts Kandy Private Limited, Indra Silva. The $29.32 million project will facilitate the building of the second lean luxury property, which is expected to be completed in mid-2022. It will feature services, facilities and offerings including an expansive rooftop bar and swimming pool, as well as a restaurant that will serve local and international cuisine on both buffet and a la carte basis. Cinnamon Hotels and Resorts initiated the lean luxury concept and segment to Sri Lanka in 2014 with Cinnamon Red Colombo, and with the addition of this new property in the hill capital, Cinnamon Red Kandy will become the first and only LEED Gold certified hotel in Kandy. The investment augurs confidence in the destination, looking beyond the current crisis, given the significance that the sector plays in the country's economy, and it is also aligned to the government's overall vision of generating a revenue of $10 billion by 2025. And moving on to more local news, Transparency International Sri Lanka claims that the lack of urgency in addressing allegations against police officers investigating major corruption cases could have a detrimental impact on public trust in the justice system. TISL claims that past incidents, including unjustified contact between politicians and investigators, illustrate that interference by political authorities undermines the impartiality and credibility of investigations. TISL's Executive Director Asoko Besekara said that the serious allegations leveled at investigative officers in the recent past, based on altered testimony provided by witnesses, must be taken seriously, and it is important that the authorities act swiftly to ascertain their accuracy. Quoting the TISL's Global Corruption Barometer, TISL stresses that in 2019, Sri Lanka has shown that 73% of the public had either a fair amount or a great deal of trust in the judiciary, whereas in the case of the police, the figure was 57%. Consequently, Obesekara added that ensuring the accountability of police under the law is crucial to building public trust in police investigations and prosecutions, and that it is essential that this takes place in the absence of political interference, which otherwise serves to undermine the credibility of the very same accountability process. Thus, TISL emphasizes that it is important that actions against police personnel are not seen as politically motivated, as this can send an alarming message to investigative officers, discouraging them from investigating those in positions of power due to potential repercussions. Stay tuned for stock updates. Welcome back after the break. The trading at Colombo Stock Exchange ended on a mixed note today. The All-Share Price Index gained 18.23 points to close at 5,780.94, and the S&P SL20 dropped 19.37 points to close at 2,492.35. The turnover was 2.5 billion rupees and over 134 million shares were traded. Up next are Forex rates. And that's all news for today. See you tomorrow with State of Business at the usual time. Until then, take care and good night.